Hello everyone. So today I thought I will do a little bit of a recommendation video, but it is a bit of a different one because it's a backlist book recommendation, and this is because I feel that sometimes BookTube has too much focus on the new releases, and I know that there are people that talk about the backlist, but most of the people I feel they talk about new releases and exciting new books, and many of us um, get winded in that new release train and the FOMO that you feel if you're not part of it. So what I thought I would do is make a series of recommendations for backlisted books that I have loved and maybe you would love too, so that we can create a bit more of an excitement for these books as well, and not just the new releases. And what I am considering a backlisted book at the moment is from the 70s until 2019. So how I want to structure these videos is to make recommendations for each decade. So what I'm going to cover today is 1970 all the way up to 1979. So I'm going to give you some recommendations that I think you might enjoy from this decade. And also at the end I will tell you about a book of that decade that I also want to read. Now, because I have read some of these recently as part of my reread project, you might have heard about some of this, but yeah, let's just get into it, and I hope you don't mind too much repetition. So the first one I have for the 70s is Flight to Canada by Ismael. This was published in 1976, and it follows three slaves that ran away from a plantation in the south to Canada, essentially. But the twist of this one is that it is set in the 1850s, so when Lincoln was there, and he's a character in the book. But also, they have technology that the people in the 1970s had. And you can see how ridiculous it becomes then that slaves still exist when there is like healthcare and education and phones and planes and all these kind of things. And I think that's a very interesting twist to give to this. Also, I like the humorous tone that it takes because it doesn't cut the slack to anybody. Lincoln is not a hero in this book, and I quite like that perspective that this book takes. I think it's quite refreshing and quite new, and I think that not enough people know about this book, and they should. Now it's published as a modern classic, so maybe you could argue that this is already a classic and not a backlist anymore. But I feel that you need about 50 years at least to become a classic. So yeah, I think that this one will become a classic for sure, but it is not quite yet, and it's quite an unknown one. So yeah, I want everybody to read this. The next one I have is Our Sister Killjoy by Ama Ata Aidoo, and this was written in 1977, and it follows a Ghanaian woman that moves to Europe to study, and it's written in a very, very poetic way. In the way that the sentences flow, it's very poetic, and I just love the way that she was able to capture that alienation that people feel when they move to a different country, and it's just beautiful. So yeah, that is another one that I don't think it gets enough praise, but I think it should get much more than it does. The next one is another one that I read recently, and it's Las Venas Abiertas de América Latina by Eduardo Galeano, which translates to The Open Veins of Latin America. And this is a non-fiction that was written in 1971. Eduardo Galeano is an Uruguayan writer, or was an Uruguayan writer. He sadly died a few years ago. And this book is a non-fiction account of how the colonizers, in this case the Spanish, but also he talks about the Portuguese and later on the US, how they treat Latin America as if it's their territory still, and how that affects the economies, and why those economies are not growing, and how it's not only because, whatever they want to say, it's laziness or whatever, it's not that, it's bigger economies blocking that development. And this is, as I said, a non-fiction, but it does read quite easily for the heavy topic that it is. And it also, Eduardo Galeano is a very sarcastic, very humorous writer, and I think that it comes through in this book. So yeah, if you want to know more about Latin America and their economical status, this will be a great one to pick up. The next one I have is one that could be argued it's a modern classic as well, and that's The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which was published in 1970. And this one follows this young girl in the south in the US. She's black, but she wants to have blue eyes because that has been portrayed to her as the epitome of success and beauty. So she tries really hard to wish for those blue eyes, but obviously that doesn't happen, and we see how hard her life is. But because it is from a child's perspective, that she doesn't have the knowledge yet, it is a lot less brutal than other Toni Morrisons, and it is as well more readable. Because Toni Morrison can have a style that is difficult to follow in things like Beloved, so I will not recommend to start with Beloved for Toni Morrison, and I think The Bluest Eye is a much better way to start. And it is, to this day, from all the Toni Morrisons I've read, I think it is still my favorite. So yeah, that's my recommendation. The next one I have is also quite a famous one that some people talk in booktube still, and it's Kindred by Octavia Butler, which was published in 1979. And this book follows a woman that travels back in time to the slavery times, and she doesn't know why, and we don't really explore the mechanics of time travel. It's just more of the idea of how would a modern black woman perceive and live in the society that was there with slavery. So in that sense, I would say that it has a lot of similarities with Flight to Canada. But yeah, it is that contrast again of the modern times and how far we have gotten, still how much farther we have to go. The way it is written, it's very fast-paced and it sucks you in from the beginning and you cannot let it go anymore. So yeah, this one is one that I think it's if you are scared of literary fiction or classics or whatever, this one is a great one to pick up because the story just sucks you in and the writing is simple yet beautiful. So yeah, I think this one is a great one. The last one I have to talk about is actually a bit of a cheat, and that is the whole Maya Angelou's memories. The first one is I Know Why the Birdcage Sings, and then the last one, it's something like Mom and Me or something, and they have been published from 1969 until the 2000s, so it's not constricted to the 70s, but I'm putting it in the 70s because actually my favorite one of the whole series is the second one, and that one was published in the 70s. And it basically follows Maya Angelou growing up. So the first one follows her when she was a child, and then the second one is more when she was a teenager. And then it goes on to when she is an adult. And the reason why I like the second one the best is because I think it shows the best her humor and her innocence at the same time. So in the first one, it's obviously very innocent because she was very young back then and she didn't completely have her personality. And and then in the second one is when she develops that snarky personality, and then after that she becomes a lot more of a serious person. So I think that's why the second one gels the best with me. And she went through some pretty hard stuff throughout her life. So it talks about race, it talks about feminism, it talks about the interaction of the two of them, it talks about the Bill of Rights in the US, and it's just overall it's a great way to understand how the US arrived to where it is today. So yeah, those were all the books from the 70s that I would recommend you read. And the one that I personally want to read, and I need to get a copy of it because my library doesn't have it, but I hope maybe I can find a second-hand copy or something. But anyway, and this one is The Healers by Ayi Kwei Armah. And this book basically is about how dangerous ignorance can be, and how if you heal that ignorance, then you can advance as a person. So yeah, I think that that one sounds amazing, and I've read from the author before and I have liked what I have read. I think he's a very smart person, and this one was published in 1979. So yeah, that one is my pick for what I want to read in from the 70s. That is in my TBR, and hopefully I will be able to do that soon. But yeah, let me know if you like this video, if you have read any of the books I have mentioned, and if you think this is a good idea, if you want me to continue through the 80s and 90s and 2000s, let me know, because I have all the books listed, so I just have to go and make the video. And yeah, I hope you enjoy, and until next video, bye!